I've heard from a bunch of South Carolina fans that they feel disrespected. They see Kentucky getting all these accolades after playing a close game with Georgia and then beating Ole Miss last weekend after the Gamecocks clobbered them 31-6 a couple weeks ago. And I can get why you're a little upset, but if you want to get the respect that you feel like you deserve, you have to go win a big-time game. Hell, game day went to Columbia after you guys beat Kentucky. And say what you want about the officiating, it's been bad all through college football. South Carolina lost and missed a huge opportunity against LSU. But this weekend, with LaNorris Sellers returning, Beamer and the boys can take a huge step towards getting that big-time respect back against an Ole Miss team that's going to be pissed off after losing at home to the Wildcats. The time for almost is over in South Carolina. And after this game, you enter a brutal stretch going to Alabama, then to Oklahoma, and then hosting Texas A&M. You need the momentum and the confidence to do something that not many people thought outside of Columbia could be done. So no more words about how unfair the Kentucky love is. Go out and earn your accolades. It's kill or be killed out here. And a close mouth don't get fed in these SEC streets. I bring in David Cohn, former Michigan quarterback, my brother, former Western State, Colorado wide receiver, Blaine Crain. David, if South Carolina wins this, the reason Kentucky is getting love is because they beat Ole Miss, and then people are going back and saying, oh, well, maybe the South Carolina game was an anomaly. They played Georgia really tight, who just played Alabama, obviously in a hell of a game this past weekend close, but you won the big-time game. If South Carolina beats Ole Miss this weekend at home, people are going to start saying, hey, maybe that LSU game was the anomaly. Not only did South Carolina beat Ole Miss, but they beat Kentucky 31-6. That's the way it works. So South Carolina is getting a second opportunity in front of the whole world in a game that Ole Miss has to have, in my opinion. I think it's a must-win because 10-2, I don't think Ole Miss gets in with their schedule if it's going to be compared to a couple other teams in the SEC that are 10-2. How do you feel about South Carolina and kind of how they're perceived?
Well, look, I think a lot of people around the country may be overlooking this game. I'll be honest with you, I'm really excited for this. And you talked a little bit about some of the implications here. Obviously, Ole Miss coming off of a loss to Kentucky, which just from an optics standpoint seems really surprising, especially with this Ole Miss team finally being in the top 6, top 5, the roster that they brought back. But then a South Carolina team that's only lost one game and really should be undefeated. I mean, they had LSU on the ropes at home. All the attention will be on LaNorris Sellers coming back, and not just him playing, but how effective will he be? Is he 95%? Is he 75%? There's going to be a big difference in those two things. But then on the Ole Miss side of things, you know, I think that a lot of the players in that locker room now realize, oh, wait, we had to do more than just show up, right? We had to do more than just assemble a nice roster and they were going to give us the trophy for the conference and automatically we'll be in the college football playoff. No, you have to go out every single week and stay focused. So Lane Kiffin has a great opportunity here to bounce back, win a big game on the road and say, hey, no, don't sell Ole Miss yet. But on the flip side of that, Shane Beamer, who also needs to put together a heck of a year, and he's doing that. This would be a seismic win for South Carolina.
It really would. And Blaine, I think David brings up a great point about LaNorris Sellers. I don't think him not being able to run is going to let South Carolina win this game if he is incapable of doing it. And it's not just the Q power, right? And the quarterback design runs. It's him making a guy miss, extending the play from outside of the pocket and keeping his eyes downfield. You want to know why they beat Kentucky? Because they won the scramble drill. That's why LaNorris was able to create and find guys when the play broke down. How do you feel about South Carolina right now? Do you think they have earned enough respect to be upset about this? And how do you see this game playing out?
I think so. I think what they did to Kentucky needs to be noted. They dismantled that team for 4 quarters. And you go back to that LSU game. Look, your quarterback went down, some questionable calls, but you had chances to win that game on defense. If you look at this game right now, we know one thing that LaNorris Sellers can do is run the football as a quarterback. From another perspective, you're going to have to put some sort of fear in this Ole Miss defense of throwing the ball, right? If not, they're going to load the box and make you do it. And I think LaNorris did well against LSU, not just the little things progressionally, but hitting big plays, right? They hit a lot of big plays against a team that you need to do that to. And another thing with South Carolina does have, which resembles Kentucky, they're damn good on defense, especially up front on the defensive line. And if you watch that Ole Miss game, Ole Miss got their ass kicked up front on the offensive line.
On both sides of the ball.
On both sides of the ball. I thought the D-line played better for Ole Miss than the offensive line.
I agree
But we talk about Lane Kiffin, we talk about Josh Heupel, we talk about all these guys. that with these high explosive offense, but what do they really want to do? They want to run the football, right? So if you're South Carolina, one, that's the first thing I'm taking away. Jackson Dart didn't prove it against me last week against Kentucky that he can make the plays in the big moments. So right now, even with the young talent they have on South Carolina, I'm stopping the run and I'm focusing especially on Rocket Sanders to see how many times I can keep it out of this Ole Miss offense's hands and put it in our quarterback hands.
I agree with most everything you said. I will say on the Jackson Dart front, he was never, the offensive line was getting beat so badly. And getting beat on the offensive line isn't just, oh no, the guy got past me. It's I'm passing, and David, you know this better than anybody, I'm getting pushed into the pocket, which messes everything up for the quarterback, not just your vision, but the timing. Not only the vision and the timing, but where you have to deliver the ball. I think some people think, everybody just throws over the offensive line and the defensive line. No, you have to find windows to throw. And when you're giving up pressure in a quarterback's face, it changes the way the quarterback has to release the ball. Yeah, you can find a guy that's open. You can actually be on time and find a guy that's open. But if you can't deliver the pass in an area to get it to where he needs to be, he might as well not be open, and you have to look off of that and try and go somewhere else. So the offensive line, Jackson Dart does deserve some blame. The run game was not good against Ole Miss, for Ole Miss in that game. But the offensive line has to give him time to get on rhythm, get on rhyme, get him on time, and let him deliver the ball in a timely manner and in a way that lets this offense operate at the highest efficiency rate. And Dylan Stewart from South Carolina is not going to be an easier matchup from a pass rush standpoint than what you just saw. I don't think South Carolina is as heavy on the inside as what Kentucky does, because that's kind of Kentucky's secret piece. Their interior defensive linemen create a lot of havoc in between the B-gap in the pass game as well, and it goes back to what I was saying. But there is no way in hell, David, that Ole Miss is going to go in this game unprepared like they were last week and think they're just going to show up. They're going to try and put their best foot forward. But Pete Golding has got to make adjustments in this game defensively. Kentucky was beating South Carolina on third and passing with basically the same thing. Like, I'm all for playing too high coverage and doing this and doing that, but at some point you have to adjust to what they're doing. People most of the time, and you heard Coach Guidry at Miami talking about this, they're not going to do what you're game planning for a lot of the time because they know you're game planning for it. We're at a point in the season where you can self-scout and find your own tendencies. So you're going to have to prepare for something different. And then if you stop the different thing you prepared for, guess what they're going to go back to? What you game planned for, because that's their bread and butter.
Well, it shouldn't take a loss for Ole Miss to go into a game prepared, right?
I agree with that.
And if you thought Brock Vandagriff gave you problems on the move and outside the pocket, well, a healthy Lenora Sellers is gonna give you plenty more problems than that. One comment on you talking about offensive linemen and protecting the pocket, just from a quarterback perspective. You can tell a lot of offensive linemen, especially interior offensive linemen, after they've been getting beat time and time again in a game, they'll just continue to pass set further and further into the pocket, with the thinking being, well, as long as I keep backing up, the guy can't get by me. Well, from a quarterback perspective, you can only go so far back in the pocket, right? And so if you have the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman in your face, that doesn't really help. That's even more detrimental. So, a lot of times we have to tell those guys, I know you've been getting beat, but you cannot just continue to pass set back on.
Would you rather, as a quarterback, have a guy, an offensive lineman, take one kicks or two kicks back and totally whiff, which gives you time to see it and a little bit of width to make the guy miss, as opposed to him keep kicking back into you, which closes space, and it doesn't give you an out? I mean, to me, I would think I'd almost rather have the guy whiff.
Yeah, because that way you only have the defensive lineman in your face, and maybe you can make
instead
a move. Instead of both of them, because the offensive lineman is as tall as me, but as big as him.
Yeah, that's true. That's a great point. Blaine, another thing I haven't seen a lot of people talking about in this game is special teams. This is a game that could come down to Shane Beamer having one of those special teams moments. And Ole Miss isn't exactly killing it on special teams. I mean, if it comes down to a field goal, that Ole Miss kicker missed that field goal by half the foot.
Yeah, that wasn't close.
So whether it's a big return, whether it's a block punt, a block field goal, or just field position in general, special teams could decide this game.
Yeah, it's huge, especially when two teams kind of match up equally. Usually the third phase will be the difference. And I wouldn't be surprised to see some fakes from Beamer when it comes to this game. And, do you fake a field goal in this game? You think Beamer's got something up the sleeve? We saw it last week in Sam Pittman. And if you do it, Jake, you're the special teams guy here. Do you do it early? Not even a field goal, anything special teams, a momentum boost. Look, it's a double-edged sword when it comes to this stuff. This either can skyrocket momentum or can completely plunge.
Well, you always carry fakes into a game. I used to carry 2 field goal fakes and 2 punt fakes. Now, in my punt, it was a rolling rugby and it was a read, so you always had the run built in there.
That's not a fake.
But that's not a fake. That's just a read mid-play. But I would always have 2 designed based on what I was getting. And I always had one that was against a safe look because defenses never think you're faking it when they go safe.
Yep.
Hence why it's called safe, right? And that's more of a short yardage thing, right? Where you know, hey, they're going to get in this type of front. We're just going to block it like an offensive line would. But to me, it's all dictated on circumstance because if we're doing well and we're leading and everything's working, I don't need to do anything extra, right? But if it's something that can change the game and there's a hole there that I've seen on film, I'm going to do it. But guys, when you go into a game, all right, the special teams coordinator on the other side or the offensive coordinator or the defensive coordinator knows that head coach's background. And Shane Beamer's head coach's background, not only his background, his father's background is being really good on special teams, being very smart and nuanced on special teams. So all week, if I'm Ole Miss's special teams coordinator, I am screaming to watch the fake. We'll probably actually go safe more times than not, even when it's not dictated, or have some sort of a safe look built into a return to make sure that we're forcing the punt because I know this guy. I'm more worried about you blocking our punt. That's what worries me because that's where Shane Beamer's really nasty. And South Carolina is at designing punt blocks. So we're going over protections. We're going over all the looks we can get, loopers, double returners, different things that you're going to see. So that's an element of this game that could decide it at the end of the day, and most of the times that it does.
What coach needs this win more?
This is tough because it's for 2 different reasons. You know, on the Shane Beamer front, if you lose this game and you look ahead at that brutal schedule, you could drop 4 games in a row. Now you're staring at 3 and 4, and it's tough sledding after what happened last year, even though you did lose Spencer Rattler, you did lose Leggett. But if you're Lane Kiffin, I think this pretty much almost eliminates you from the playoff. You have to be perfect. You have to beat Georgia at home. And let's pull up the rest of Ole Miss's schedule real quick. Let's go through the rest of it.
I mean, Ole Miss isn't going to fire Lane Kiffin.
No, there's no chance of that happening.
But being eliminated from the playoffs with this roster, that could jeopardize his future there just in terms of does he start looking for another job earlier? Is it easier to entice Lane Kiffin to leave Ole Miss if he's eliminated from the playoff when it's barely October?
I think so.
All right, let's go through the schedule. Obviously, you're at South Carolina this weekend. Then you're at LSU. You have Oklahoma at home. You're at Arkansas, Georgia at home, at Florida, and obviously the Egg Bowl to finish the season.
I think this is a must-win. The odds of you beating LSU on the road and Georgia at home if you lose this game, right, they aren't very good. I think, Ole Miss fans, do you feel like this is a must-win for you guys? I want to know in the chat.
Hey, quickly, what do you think about the 9 points right now? Spread opened at -10, Ole Miss. Now it's -9, 52.5 over on.
Why would I not buy it up to +10.5 South Carolina and put money on it? That's where
South Carolina.
I would buy it.
What has Ole Miss proven to you against a good football team?
That they're 10 points better than them.
Oh, especially on the road?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Well, I think maybe the thinking of that is, hey, Ole Miss is going to come back twice as hard now that they lost. Maybe there's that thought of.
That's why I like the over here.
You know,
I
don't think
South
that's.
Carolina is going to score.
I don't. What's it at?
52.5.
Okay, I don't mind that, but I don't hate the 9. If you want to just lay the 9 for South Carolina, it's over 7, so I'm fine with it. But if I was going to put it in a parlay or I was going to put big money on it, I would buy that up to +10.5 just to give me a little extra insurance, right? Because the game's more likely to end in a 10-point frame than a 9-point frame with the way the scoring's divvied out in 3s, 4s, 6s, and 7s. But we want to know what you think in the chat, Ole Miss fans, or everybody in general. Is this a must-win for Ole Miss? Hey, YouTube, what's up? You liking what you're smelling, huh? We appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button. Works for everybody, helps everybody, and we're very, very thankful you guys are here.